Lucy, say hey. Lucy, say hey. Say hi. Hmm? You know the story about the dog that Baba gave the Acharya, the dog. I don't know who she is. Well, listen, at the end of the last tape, you might have noticed something subtle had happened, and I was going to share something, but I really wasn't sure, and then this wind came, and then I was sure it wasn't something I really wanted to really should say at that moment. Maybe some other time. You know the story where Baba says, with the rustling of the leaves in the treetops, that's me. So instead of telling something really heavy, you know, I mean, it is true that I came in close contact with Baba when I was very young and several things, but what I want to tell you something now is really kind of light. If I can warm up. In the Jaggerty, I was telling you, so it's so cold I can't talk. In the Jaggerty where I had the dreams, one time something very funny happened. I was meditating. I think I had first lesson. I don't think I had second lesson yet, although I did get second lesson from Jadaddeva, Acharya Jadaddeva, in that house. I think this is just prior to that. And I was sitting one morning, meditating, trying to meditate, whatever I was doing then, and I heard this drip, drip, drip sound coming from the kitchen, you know, and so I was, you know, I had all these romantic notions about meditation that I picked up from some Buddhist books years before and whatever, and meditating with ants coming up your body, you know, all this silly stuff, and and so I said, well, I'm going to meditate through this dripping sound, you know. So I hear this drip, 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 and then finally I hear this shh. It's like a stream of water coming down. I went, oh, I can't do this. I can't do it. I'm getting up, gonna go see what's happening, you know. So I got up and I walked into the kitchen of the Jaggerty and I looked up and water is pouring from the ceiling. And at that very moment, a huge portion of the plaster in the ceiling, about the size of the kitchen table, falls from the ceiling with hundreds of gallons of water and hits the kitchen table, and there's water and stuff everywhere. And I went, oh my God. And so I went running. Well, the Jaggerty was there's a first floor and a second floor. And upstairs were some university students were upstairs. And so I went running upstairs and knocked on the door, the back door, and they wouldn't come to the door. And so I crashed the door in. I went inside, and the kitchen sink was running and overflowing on the kitchen floor. The water had come in and actually crushed our ceiling, you know, like this. And I said, is there anybody here? And I heard somebody. I walked back there, and the guy, he was sitting in the bathtub. I don't know. So he's sitting in the bathtub, and the kitchen sink was running, and I was trying to meditate. And he was a Chinese graduate student. He was a very nice guy. And we got the water turned off and called the landlord. And so the next morning I was trying to meditate, and there's a knock at the door, you know. And so I go to the door, and it's this the guy who caused a disaster the previous day. And he had this big platter of refried rice, fried rice, and that he'd cooked for me to try to make up for a disaster that had happened. And of course it had eggs in it, and I wasn't eating eggs. And I picked around it and ate it. It was a loving thing, and that's what happened. So that's pretty lighthearted. Another story happened that I want to tell you about. Happened with Acharya Jadaddeva and I, and this is also very early in my career. And there was a regional retreat, or maybe just a retreat from Alabama, in Selma, Alabama. And by the way, a footnote to history, there was a national retreat, and there were some, you know, some old Margies. They were inspired. They decided to go to Selma and set up a unit there as a mission. And so they did, and these Margies who came to their center and learned meditation moved to Birmingham, and that's how I got into it. So, but anyway, we're in Selma, and we drove down there with I think 3 cars from Birmingham were going down there. It was held like an old plantation house, like an antebellum house that some Margie's had inherited from their grandmother who had died. We were going to have it there, and we were driving down there late at night. It was dark. It was maybe 11 o'clock at night, and a few miles from our destination, there was a car stopped on the road, and what it was a car had run out of gas, and inside the car were 2 couples that had been out on a date, a double date, and they were African American. They were out of gas on this little road in the middle of nowhere in Alabama, and so we stopped to see if we could help them, and we got out, and they said, "We're out of gas," and we said, "Well, there's no gas stations open this time of night. We don't know what to do. Sorry," and we left. We left them there stranded. So we pulled into the driveway to the house, and everybody got out and went into the house. And I saw the garage there, and I thought, well, maybe there's some gasoline in there for a lawnmower. And I went in there, and there was a 5-gallon gas can full of gas. And I took it, and I went to Dada. He was still at the car, I think. And I said, "Dada, I found some gas." And Dada said, "Let's go." And so we got in the car with the gas, and we took off, and nobody knew where we went. We just vanished. And so we get to the car, and I turn it up, and I put in about 3 or 4 gallons in their tank, and screw it on. And they thanked us, and we were happy to help them. And we got in the car and drove back to the meditation retreat center there, the old antebellum house. And as we pulled in the driveway, the car with these 2 couples who had been stranded pulled in right behind us, and they got out, and they just had to thank us one more time, and we said, "Hey, it's cool," and they left. And I turned to Dada and I said, Dada, that was really, really good that we were able to find that gasoline and get them some gas so they could get home." And Dada looked at me and he says, "Baba always gives you an opportunity to do service." I went, okay. Oh, it's getting cold. I'm going back in the house. It's wintertime here in Atlanta, and it's not supposed to be as cold. It hasn't snowed yet. It hasn't snowed in years. It must be global warming, So, namaskar. Namaskar.